Welcome to The Authentic Life with KL, the podcast where we throw out the rule book, where we dive in head first to the real and raw, unapologetic journey of living the best life. That includes lots of music. This is your go-to space for empowerment, for deep healing and owning your authenticity like the boss that you are. We're here to break down walls and slay self-doubt. Vibe to the soundtrack of your soul. With every beat and lyric, we'll move through stories that heal and empower. You can live your fullest and most badass life. Welcome to The Authentic Life with KL. This episode of The Authentic Life with KL is brought to you by Break the Silence, a nonprofit created using music as a platform to raise awareness for mental health, suicide prevention, and recovery of all kinds, offering hope and starting the hard conversations to bring communities together. It's Kitty, and today I have with me Cameron Lundstrom from NAS Recovery Solutions, and I could probably tell you a whole bunch about him that I've really done some research to learn about him, but I'm going to let him tell you because it is a story that makes my heart very full. So makes it very full, and I'm very excited to have you. Thank you for joining me today.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, so tell me who you are now. Like, who is Cam now? Outside of everything, who is that?
Well, the real answer to that is I'm just a guy who's trying to do his best. That's the truth. This year will be 15 years in May, in recovery, but I'm still a human being. I still make mistakes. Sometimes I say the things I shouldn't say. Sometimes I get frustrated. So I just keep trying to do my best, keep coming into the situations, learning how to be a father again, learning how to be a husband, learning how to run a business. All those things and trying to navigate, this crazy life I've had. I just try to do my best.
Yeah, that's probably the most authentic answer I've had. And I love that because it's like people ask me and I'm like, I don't know. I'm just me. I'm a student. I'm learning. I'm like always a student trying to just me.
That's right.
I know. So I appreciate that answer so much. So I was going to have several questions and all that, but I wanted to just give you this time to kind of start your story, where your story began, and then we can talk about the afterwards. So talk to me about when your story began for you in the before, we'll call it.
Well, like some people with addiction problems, mine started in childhood. I had a really difficult childhood. My mom was an addict. I grew up in California. Some of that time I spent on the streets. And then my biological dad found me when I was a teenager and brought me out to Colorado. And I tried to integrate into Colorado, which was a complete change, right? To go from Los Angeles to Denver in the 80s. So
Oh
not the
gosh.
Denver we know today.
Right.
Uh, um, but I suppressed a lot of the things that had gone, right? A lot of my trauma. I just learned how to cap it down and cap it down. And, I really didn't experiment too much when I was young. Drank a little bit in high school, smoked a little weed, nothing serious. But then I went and fought in the Gulf War. I served in Desert Shield, Desert Storm. And when I came back, things started to unravel for me. And I didn't suffer some battlefield trauma. I would never disrespect my fellow veterans in any way like that. But the stuff I had been suppressing started to come out, especially as I started to drink more and then got introduced to drugs in Southern California. And everything went left. My marriage fell apart. I got booted out of the military over it. Eventually, I started bumping up against the criminal justice system. Just little traffic tickets at first, and then it was a possession charge, and then I got caught once with a stolen car. And, after about 20 years, so I came back from the war in 91. 2011, I got really sideways. After decades of addiction, my character was destroyed, and I had just spiraled into the criminal justice system. Like I got a bronze service star while I was in the Gulf War. 20 years later, I was looking at the rest of my life in prison. 2011, I got charged with a whole bunch of aggravated robberies and was looking at about 600 years, 608
Mm,
years, as a matter of fact.
gosh.
And that kind of got my attention.
Yeah,
And I
that would.
realized, yeah. Uh, so, my addiction had, I basically had burnt every bridge I could. Uh, and when I got to prison, I had nobody but myself and the people in the prisons with me. And that's where I really started to rebuild myself.
And have you found, or did you find then, once you're in the prison system, it's hard to stay out of it if you're recurring?
So that's a real thing right there. So
Yeah.
when I first went to prison, so it wasn't just one time, right? I had been
Yeah.
going in and out since 96. 96, I got my first case and went down for a few years and came back. And they tried to, they tried to give me a break because I was a veteran. But really, it, once I started to identify as a convict, like I went in long enough to
Yeah.
start to indoctrinate myself into their belief systems. Like everybody, it's us against them and this and that. And once I picked up that identity, that is what kept me in going in and out, is because I saw myself like that, right? This is who I was now. And yeah, you're right. I really think that is the main cause. Like, if you have a sick person, you
Mm.
don't put them in a room full of bacteria and think that they're going to get better, right? So why would you put somebody who has an addiction in full of a room, an area full of criminals, and think that they're not going to learn how to be a
Yeah.
criminal, right?
No, that's powerful. That's a powerful statement because I lost a brother to addiction, and so that's why I'm so passionate about this. He spent time in and out, and he would say, "You go in as an addict, you can get drugs there too. It's not like
Yeah, yeah, it
it's
doesn't
not.
stop.
Yeah, it just becomes that you're more comfortable there sometimes than out. You know, when it becomes career criminal. Yeah, if that's what they call it. You know.
Exactly. Like
Yeah.
what Abraham Maslow said, one who is good with a hammer thinks everything is a nail, right? And once I was a tough guy in the dope game, right? And so once I realized I could be somebody as a tough guy in the prison system, right? That was who I was, and I had that identity and I had that tool that could solve problems for me or get me out of shit. Then hey, man, why not use it?
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, I think at some point it's kind of survival until you know different or you decide that you're going to change it. I've saw both sides of that, unfortunately. You know, not always the good ones, but what do you think was your biggest turning point on your change? Was there a specific catalyst that came to you that was like, all right, this is the switch, I'm not going back? What was that for you?
Well, there were actually two. This last time. The first one was looking at 600 years, right?
Yeah.
My attorney at the time, she said something to me that really stuck with me. She was kind of joking with me. She said, "You want the good news or the bad news?" And I said, "Well, give me the good news." And she said, "The good news is you're only looking at 600 years." And I was like, "How is that good news?" And she said, "Cameron, it's not a life sentence." And it dawned on me right there, okay, that's truth. Like I got good brothers in there right now who never get to see the parole board, right? So right there, that click said, okay, I can change, and whatever happens is going to happen, right? I might not get out of prison. We're talking about, I was 42 years old at that time,
Right.
looking at all that time, and I kind of figured I was going to die in the box, but I got to decide who they put in the ground. Right?
Mm,
That was the shift. Is like I may die in here, but I get to determine who that man is that they bury. So that was the first one, right? And at that point, I really started working on my character. I found a book in Jefferson County Jail that changed my life called The Seven Habits of Highly Effective People. I
good
had
book.
actually read it when I was on my way back from the Gulf War. But at that time, I was like 23 years old. I didn't have the discipline to actually turn anything into habits. But this time, I had a commitment. And I went through that book probably three times
Mm,
while I was fighting my case. I wound up with 30 years as a crime of violence.
Mm.
And that means that I'd have to do 20 before I could even see the parole board. Technically, I have 5 more years to do before I can see the parole board. Um, but the truth is when you really change in here, everything out here changes. Like not
Yeah.
even prison walls can keep you in anymore. So I started working on myself, right?
Yeah.
And rebuilding my character and incorporating principles, all these things. And I was going through my sentence. I started out in Buny, where I usually did, and I got moved to another facility so I can work, and things were going pretty good. And then one day I was shaving, and I found a lump in my neck. I don't know if your people can see this scar on my neck,
Yeah, I can see it.
but I
Mhm.
that's it's 12 inch and goes from the
Yeah.
back of my ear all the way down to
Oh,
here.
yeah, I see that.
It took them 15 months to send me to a doctor.
Mm.
But when they finally did, it was metastatic squamous cell carcinoma. And she said, this cancer has about a 5 year survival rate. I think you've had it for 2 years.
Oh,
And so when I drove back to the facility, shackled in the back of a van, at that point I had 14 years to the parole board, and I thought I had 3 years left to live. And so everything shifted again. And that's when I decided I'm just going to give everything away. And I don't mean like my television set or my sweats. I mean
yeah.
everything in here. And I just started working with my brothers on the inside, just listening for the first time, trying to really make connection, trying to give what I had inside me away. And once again, it changed the entire trajectory of my
Yeah.
life, right? When I got out of myself, right? So that first part, trying to change or grow, I was all focused on me.
Yeah.
But then once I got out of that and said, man, there's everybody else out here. Let me share what I have before I go. I honestly, to tell you the truth, I think that's why I'm still here, right?
Yeah.
I've been cancer free 5 years now.
Mm.
After I kicked cancer's ass from a prison cell, I wound up getting back into court, and I gave 20 years back. And
Mm.
so really, those two moments, right? Really, that the recognition and acceptance that
Mm.
that 30-year sentence was legitimate. It really was. I was a lying, junkie, scumbag thief. That's who I was. And I had to accept that fact before I could move on and do something about it, right? I tried to get clean before, but I
Yeah.
was never honest about who I really was. I always made excuses. There was always things I didn't want to admit to. And it was that's why they have a 4 step, right? In the 12 steps, right? That's what a 4 step is of the fearless moral inventory. Like,
Yeah.
who are you really? Once I came to that moment, it allowed me to then
What
continue
kind of
on.
emotions come up with that? I know I feel like self-reflection and that moment that you become so humble that you're like, oh my God, I did this and I did this, that it's very humbling. But what kind of emotion did that evoke for you when you started going through that inventory of the things that you had done and the people that you had hurt and including yourself?
Yeah, it was deep, and it doesn't just happen, right?
Yeah.
We're talking about a year's process, right?
Yeah.
I was processing through different things. See, the thing I couldn't get past in my earlier times going down was I never really admitted that I was an abusive and neglectful father. Like
Mm.
that's the truth. I didn't beat my kids, but they saw me get in fights with their mom. They saw me do criminal stuff. They saw me pistol whip people. That's abuse,
Yeah.
right? But I didn't want to admit to that. Nobody wants to say, "Hey, yeah, you're a real shitty father. Your children were scared of you," and so not dealing with that kept me in the cycle. That shame and guilt was buried from that, and until I could bring that out in the light, own it, and start to get through those layers, I was never going to reconnect with my kids. I was never going to be able to make amends or talk to them or anything, right? Because I couldn't certainly go back to them with the same bullshit excuses I had back in the day, right? That ain't going to
Yeah.
work.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, no, it's humbling when you look at those things. And I mean, even with my kids, I've learned that true apology, yes, you can speak it, but changed action is the biggest apology and mending on so many levels, at least in my experience.
truth. And it does, and we don't get to decide when they're ready to forgive us.
Right. And sometimes
That's
they don't. I mean, that's with all people.
truth.
Sometimes,
Yeah.
grief is, and that is grief, we don't get to tell others how they feel or how we made them feel. And gosh,
Nope.
wouldn't that be great if we could? No, that's not how it
Yeah,
works.
right.
But
Right. Yeah,
we,
once we're really truly regretful, and then
yeah,
they would just forgive us, but it doesn't. And the truth is,
yeah,
they have to process. They have their own lives, man. They are
yeah,
processing that same trauma. And for me, it was like this loop connected because I went through that stuff with my mom,
yeah,
right? So the same time I was learning how to accept my wrongs, I was able to let go and forgive all of that stuff that I had been carrying around, all that baggage I had been carrying around for decades. I realized my mom was just doing the best she could.
yeah,
Do you know what I mean? It wasn't personal. She wasn't like, I'm gonna fuck my kid up.
yeah.
I'm sorry, you don't mind if I
Yes,
cuss on you?
please.
Or
No, please,
because
please.
no,
No,
I'm
absolutely.
an ex-sailor and a
No,
convict, so
I'm all brother, so we're good. We're good.
all right.
Yeah, yeah, I think that the healing is always cyclical. Well, I mean, life is cyclical, all the things that we go through. But I think a big moment for me in my healing journey was recognizing people are people, right? They're not the expectations that we put on them. And a lot of our
Right.
hurt comes from our own expectations. And I think healing the mom wound is something that is impactful for so many people, and you realize, oh man, and then you realize, I think that you realize the energy that you waste on resentment and all those things when you realize
Yeah.
they're
Yeah.
people,
They're
just
just
like
doing their best.
we're just
Yeah.
people. Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure, for sure. Did you go get to the parole board?
Well, yeah. So the same year, so I did surgery first, right? And they took out like 15 lymph nodes,
That's
cleaned
so
out, and they did
much.
this thing called a neck dissection, right? So they completely opened up my neck and moved everything out of the way so they could look behind it. And
Wow,
then I did 33 rounds of radiation and 7 rounds of chemo. I lost 38 pounds in 7 weeks.
that's a lot.
Yeah, definitely had an impact.
Yeah,
But that same year, I filed some motions. I filed a 35C back in 2000 and probably 16. And of course, it takes years for everything to go through.
yeah,
Same year, though, I got a letter, came back and said, we're willing to grant you a hearing. I went back and I'll never forget this. The district attorney, the same district attorney who had exaggerated some stuff to make sure that my sentences were stacked together to give me she got up there and she said, as a prosecutor, I must recognize the ability of rehabilitation, but it has become so rare that it is something special when it happens. The state does not object to any of Mr. Lundstrom's claims. And she sat back down.
mm,
And I was like, whoa. And then the judge was like, today I get to feel like a judge. All week long, I aggravate sentences. Today I get to mitigate one. And she basically said the reason was because of what I did while I was in prison. And what I had done was all because of the cancer, right? All these things. So at first I had worked on myself, but it was and I'm a very spiritual person. Like I think everything happens for a reason, right? Everything came together and my willingness to go with it because that's what we do, right? We struggle
mm,
to get right. We try to do things our way for so long, and we're just no. I got this. I'm doing this. I know what I want. The
yeah,
moment we relax and say, okay, what do you want me to do? And
yeah,
they lay it out in front. It's laid out in front of us. This is what you got to do, and we just be willing to go to work and do it. The doors open up.
I
You know?
agree. Yeah.
Yeah.
Spend our lifetime denying what God, source, universe, whatever you want to call it, like it's there. Like I have
Yeah.
no doubt it's there
Yeah.
working. You just have to be willing to listen. So,
Yeah. So let me back up a little bit. So when
sure.
I was still out in active addiction, and I was actually selling drugs downtown Denver. I realized that there's a terminal threshold where the consequences of your addiction and your choices mount, right? And you're usually strung out and dirt broke when they hit, right? That's usually how the universe source hits you at all with it, right? The bills aren't paid, the house is trashed, the kid is screaming, the car's broken, the phone doesn't work. It's all hits you all at once, right? And that's when people usually say, fuck it, and they go left, right? They
Yep.
stop trying. And that's when the really bad stuff happens, right? As long as you're trying to get right, there's at least you're in the fight. But when you walk away and you say, that's when things get really bad. So I saw this happening all the time, and I felt responsible because I'm dealing drugs, right? And I'm like, I don't want this on my conscience. So I started this little thing I called meth makeovers. And let's say you're all strung out and we know it. We know you're all effed up. And so we roll over there and we get, we serve you some food and we put you out and we clean your house. We put food in the fridge. We do all the dishes. Like basically with a couple $100 and a few people, man, you can totally redo a two-bedroom apartment or a house or whatever needs to get done, right? And all I asked in return was next week when Joe's house needs it, when Joe's falling apart, you're going to come help me scrub his floors.
Hmm.
And I had an army behind me. Within a couple of weeks, man, I had people all over the circle, right? Because Denver, I know that everybody likes to think there's little cliques, but it's actually one big circus,
Big circuit.
right? Yeah. Everybody was calling me, Cameron, who are we going to go do? Who are we going to go help? Um, but of course, it fell apart because I was still in addiction and eventually got hemmed up. But that little seed, that little kernel, that's what that's where NAS came from, right? I had an old friend tell me one time. She said, "Boy, you better go get a nap and a sandwich if you're going to mess with me." And she was right. At that point, I was all screwed up, and it's kind of funny. That's exactly what the system gave me,
Yeah.
right? They gave me a bologna sandwich and threw me in a concrete box and said, "Hey, take a nap, bro." Uh, so that's where that came from, right? It all started there, but after
NAS, nap and
NAS,
sandwich.
nap and a sandwich, baby. And that, you can still talk to people that are in the recovery game out here that remember that were in Fremont when they remember me talking about it on the weight pile in 2015, going, "Hey, I'm going to build this company and this is what we're going to do and this is going to be my philosophy." And they're like, "Bro, you got 16 years to go, dude. You shut up." And I'm like, "You watch what happens."
Yeah.
Right?
What is offered that you didn't have whenever you were going through?
The two biggest things, number one is accountability.
Mm.
Like we are not afraid to ask you, what the fuck are you doing, asshole?
Yeah.
Right? And like stop the bullshit. And only that can come from another, like if you're an authority figure, like if you're a licensed clinical treat therapist, you
Right,
can't get
right,
away with that,
right.
right? As a peer, I can jam you up.
Yeah.
And that is really what we need sometimes. We need people to call us on our bullshit because all that distorted thinking will just keep running in our brains.
Yeah.
And then the second piece was people who really knew what I was doing, what really knew what I was going through, right? That had been successful. That is the like people who lay it out for us, like, listen, this is what we do. That really, I see that making a big difference in our clients. Um, and I wish I had somebody like that, somebody I could trust,
Yeah.
who was like me.
That is one of the things that is behind me doing the podcast and me opening up the nonprofit is that I believe that people's healing starts with telling your story, because when you tell your story, then someone else is able to see themselves within you, and it starts this ripple effect of, oh, I didn't know there was someone else like me. And so I think it is so valuable sharing stories.
I am just amazed at Colorado too. Like we have called the BHA out here and Medicaid and everybody, they have done an amazing, amazing work. They dumped a shit ton of money to get this thing off the ground, and there are some very great companies out here doing work. It's not just NAS, it's an entire thing
Yeah.
out here now. And I think that's why we've had such a big impact on, recidivism, on the opioid death rate. All of these things have come because they realize people with learned experience who are straight and will have a greater impact than threats or coercion or prison sentences. You know what I mean? Like that doesn't really work. Nobody gets threatened clean.
No, no.
No. It doesn't work like that.
No, there's not really a lot of scared straight. Like they hit my, it just doesn't happen
Yeah.
that way.
Yeah.
It's very difficult. Like I said earlier, I watched my brother go in and out of the prison system, and he got to where he didn't know how to live outside of that. When he was out, it just always going back to the game of it. And so
What else are you going to
it's
do? Like, Yeah, three
Yeah.
times I got dropped off downtown with $100. Good luck.
You do
Yeah.
work with prison, I want to say ministry, but prison recover. What is that called? Pulling back in,
Community
pulling
community
back into the
corrections.
community. Yes, there we
Yeah, there you go. Community correction. We actually have that's our
go.
little niche.
Uh-huh.
Um, we have a couple of different licenses specifically for the justice involved. Um, that that's where things get really bad.
Yeah.
So we've really been able to make an impact. Most of my coaches have done time. I do have a couple of great coaches who are just allies who watched family members go in and
Sure.
out and struggle, which is very impactful when they're sharing
Yeah.
their story of watching their
Yeah.
loved one, right? Um, so it's been wonderful to be able to help my brothers and
Yeah.
sisters as they've reintegrated.
Yeah, because it's not just, as you know, it's not just the addict that is affected. The addict is affected, but it does affect everyone around as well. And just as, I feel like just as deep, just in different ways, and if you have the ability to make an impact, I mean, that's what you do. That's what we're here on this planet to do. So,
Yeah.
what is real recovery? What does that what does that look like to you when you're talking about helping people in recovery? What does that look like for you?
So I love like your podcast, right? Authentic Life.
Yeah.
So one of the questions, so I'm very philosophical. Every time I went to prison, I read everything I could get my hands on. I love to read, and I would read philosophy and all kinds of different things. And I kept asking myself, if there is a source, if there is some kind of divine entity, why are he allowing people to suffer like that, or why do people suffer? And I think I've come to understand that like the truth is that when I went through trauma as a child, but when I healed from that trauma. When I'm in that trauma, all I do is traumatize others, right? As long as I'm still sticking in the trauma and not working through it and processing it, then all I'm giving out to other people is trauma. But when I start to actually work through it, I
Mhm.
become exactly what source needs me for the world, right? Like if you think that everything happens for a reason, if everything happens for a reason in my life, and your life and her life and their life and everybody's life all at the same time. Like that's like so I think for me, it real recovery looks like authentic healing and the energy you bring back. Honestly, like let's be honest, America is off the chains right now,
Mhm.
guys. Like it's not like we're just battling and I really think that the addicts when they heal, they bring exactly the energy that this society needs. Like when
Yeah.
you overcome addiction and incarceration and rebuild your character in order to re-engage with the community, that is exactly what this society needs. And so we're bringing the light. Like I truly
Yeah.
believe that. Recovered addicts are
Yeah.
leading the way, and we need to get out there and share it with everybody because just because they're not addicted to drugs doesn't mean they're not addicted to something. Like
Agree.
even if it's just Netflix
Agree.
or whatever drama, like
Yeah.
it's everywhere.
Yeah.
So that
Yeah.
real recovery is that authentic healing and then sharing it again, right?
Yeah.
That's what I think we need more of.
Yeah. And can we talk about how rewarding it is to be a part of someone else's breaking of the chains? Whatever that looks like. I will be just humbled into tears. Sometimes the people in my community will write me a letter or whatever, that happens because you know that you're just being a vessel for the universe. That's what I always say. I'm just a vessel for the
Yes.
universe doing what I'm supposed to do.
Amen.
But
Yeah,
it's so rewarding. It's the most rewarding thing I've ever been a part of is to watch the light come on and see someone else just kind of rise. It's really an amazing thing to be able to be a part of.
truth. Yeah, I
Yeah.
love it.
Yeah.
That's the
And
fulfillment, right?
it is. It's the fulfillment and the fact that even like you being in here trusting, me with talking to you and the story and people when they trust you to tell their story, you should take that like it's just a gift. And then they continue to do that. And it just really spreads like wildfire, like that ripple story. But in the world today, it's a lot of hate and a lot of anger and a lot of things that we don't want to spread. So,
Yeah. Judgment, right? Everybody's
yeah,
judging everybody,
yeah,
right? It's the opposite of connection. You ever heard, I can't remember the name of the guy. He had a TED talk many years ago, and he said the opposite of addiction is not sobriety, it's connection.
mm,
And that is, I am I exhibit that, right? I knew, I'll give you an example. Like, I never got a year of sobriety. Well, I never usually made it a year. Usually about 10 months is what I had in me, right? I
right,
try, make it about 10 months. But I never went, like, I never all of a sudden one day went, you know what? I want to go shoot up some meth. That's not how it happened. What
right,
happened was I tried to change and be somebody different in society, and I got lonely, right? I wasn't around my people anymore. Nobody understood my jokes. Like, and finally I'd be like, you know what? I want to call my people up. And I'd start calling and talking to my old friends and stuff. And then I would go back to addiction, right? Because I would be around it again and around them. And
yeah,
that's what, so for me, it wasn't the drug that always took me back. It was the people, it was the
yeah.
connection.
That's so
So
true.
but the opposite, now I know they say so the opposite of addiction is not sobriety, but connection. But the opposite of connection is judgment.
Right.
You wanna disconnect from somebody, or you just remember the last time somebody judged you and how
Oh,
that felt, how you automatically say, you know what, I don't need this, right?
yeah,
So all
yeah,
this judgment is just disconnecting us
right.
when we really just need to show compassion and
Yeah.
understanding.
I was
And
like, we all want connection. We all want to be loved. We
yeah,
all want to have a safe space. And uh, it seems so simple, right? It seems so easy,
yeah,
once you're, I think, on the other side of it, like just don't judge, know that they're human and they're going through this. And I think that there is a lot of misconception as well for addicts, and I'm sure that you've had this, like, well, they can just stop whenever they want. They just make this choice to do this and that. And I learned through the experience that I've had is, my brother loved his children so much, so much. There's so much about him that was just wonderful. The addiction didn't define who he was as a whole. It was part of him and it was the part that took him. But there's the big misconception that an addict is an addict, and that is all that it is. There's nothing else there, but there's so much there, just like all of us.
you know that you really hit something there, because a lot of times people think um what do you call it? They're trying to manipulate, right?
Yeah,
They're just manipulating you. That's not true. There was only one time, I remember one time that I actually went and committed to something that I knew I wasn't going to be able to complete. But every other time before that, I was actually trying to get clean.
yeah,
The truth is that I was emotionally, spiritually, and culturally bankrupt, right? That's truth. After years of addiction, I only had so much attention. I only had so much effort before the difference this time. Here's one of the big things that is we focus on this in NAS is filling your cup.
mm,
Like, you take somebody who just comes off the street and they're going to try to do the hard work that it takes to get into long term recovery, not without learning how to fill their cup, not without learning how to bring back the feelings of joy and fulfillment and
mm,
expectation and engagement and all of these things. And you got to do that with things that they're interested in, things that they love. You got to remind them what a good person they are, right?
yeah,
Sometimes people don't even remember that. They just think they're just a junkie scumbag and everybody hates
yeah,
them. You got to fill them back up,
yeah,
right? Give them that energy. I think that's the biggest takeaway that the system denies them,
mhm,
is they don't fill their cup first. Like, you want them to go pull this prison sentence and change, dude, you got to fill them up, man.
yeah.
You got to help them have the energy to grow.
Yeah, and I think that sometimes in the prison system and just within the justice system that they just expect you to fail, and I think that that is something. Unless you're in there working, trying to help them not fail, I think they just expect you to fail, and I sometimes we live up to people's expectations.
Truth.
You just do, like, you expect it of me. Why would I try any different? So there definitely needs to be some change and reform that helps people where they need it, not where everybody else that has no idea what
Right.
they're
They're
going
working
through.
on it.
Yeah,
I'll tell you that. They really are.
yeah,
The system, everything ebbs and flows, right? Cycles.
yeah,
Everything goes in cycles.
yeah,
And so The system will make three or four systems steps forward and then fall back one or two, and then they'll make some steps forward. And they're human beings too, right? How
Yeah.
can I judge them if I'm not? If you know what I
Yeah.
mean? It's the same thing. They're humans. They're doing the best they can,
Yeah.
right? They have no money, right? They're
Yeah.
all overworked. Dude, prisons today, like they shut the yards. Like there's no programming going on in prisons right now because they don't have the funds to keep people employed
Mm.
there. Like they don't have the
Yeah.
staff. Like that's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just a
Sorry,
hard
sorry.
place.
Sometimes I get off on a
Oh
tangent.
gosh, no, I am all about it.
I'll
You're
start
not,
preaching.
no concern. That is okay with me. That's okay with me. How do you stay grounded now in times when you're helping people who might be at a dark time? Or, to be honest, I have friends that are still struggle with addiction and they get triggered by things. How do you stay grounded without having those triggers pop up?
Well, it takes in order to be a really good peer, of course, you need empathy, right? You need to be
Hmm.
empathetic, but of course, you do need to have good boundaries too, right? So for us here, one of the things have to do is work on ourselves first. Self-care is not an option. It is mandatory, right? All of my coaches and myself, we still go to treatment and therapy. Like I
Nice.
still talk to somebody myself. I need to because I'm working with this person here that I need a place to let that stuff go too,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Uh, so it's an ongoing thing for us.
Hmm.
I recognize, we find what really works, what fills my cup, I love my dogs, I love my motorcycle, I love my wife. We do things together, you got to find those good things. And of course, staying grounded really is also an acceptance, right?
Yeah.
To realize stay out of judgment with them because when it's really hard, sometimes after we've gone through so much and then seen it so many times, like because really we can sometimes I feel like and my coaches we've talked about this. I feel like we could just walk up and tell the dude, "Hey man, if you just do this, this, and this, you're gonna be fine." Right?
Yeah.
Right? Just do this. And it doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
They have
Yeah.
their own life, right? They are entitled to their own process. They have
Yeah.
something to give from their own journey. We have to let them do their thing, right? It's sad. Sometimes like we lose people sometimes.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's the one that hurts the most when you
Yeah.
when you were there with them and talking with them and man, they seemed like they were on it. They were like number one in the rehab and everything's great and 3 months later you hear they overdosed and they're
Mm,
gone. You know?
mm. Yeah.
It breaks your heart.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so
That's
I hope
that's
that answered
heavy.
that question. I was kind of all over
Yeah.
the place.
No, that's okay. That's all right. I'm a
Yeah.
music person to the core. It really has shown itself to be a bridge. So if I ask you about a song, typically people don't say anything. They'll say, here's the song, but this is why that's important. So you get a story, through that. Is there a certain band or artist that you listened to when you were going through?
Well, in the active addiction, when I realized that I needed to change, which was early on, but I lacked the ability to do it. Like
Sure.
I was conscious enough to realize this is bad. Your life is going bad. And I had people tell me like, Cam, what are you doing? This is going to be bad. So I knew it
Sure.
early on. I just couldn't stop. But
Mm.
Shine Down took me through so much and then also helped uplift me and then try again, right? Get back in the fight again, right? Um, who else was it for me? Lincoln Park too. Imagine that. I
Oh,
know I'm Gen X. I'm 56, but Lincoln was bumping back in the day when I was out there.
yeah.
And Today, though, when I still like that old boogie woogie type rock and roll. So like when I get uplifted, when I need some feel good music, I go back to the old AC/DC and stuff, right? That
Oh,
just
yeah.
that rocking kind of thing. Yeah, but there were so many Shine Down songs.
Yeah.
Uh, Imagine Dragons too. I like some
Hmm.
Imagine Dragons. That really got me through some stuff. And Red Light Kings. I don't know if
Oh,
you
yeah.
who know. Yeah,
Yeah. Music is it's a language I think that we don't, and all the times that we all misunderstand each other, we don't misunderstand in music.
right,
Yeah, we,
right.
we just don't. We don't. If your story could reach just one person who is struggling, what would you want them to take from your story?
It's never too late. Like I did time. My felony. career, you could call it, right? Spans 3 decades. I did time in the 90s, in the 2000s, in the 2010s. Like I was a career criminal. A lot of these people that are working in this space now, they did time too, but most of them were one and done, right? Once of them got in there, like, man, this isn't going to work for me. There are very
Right.
few of us who were lifers, right? Who did decades in the game, and so it's never too late, guys. Like you can grow. I don't like the term change. Um, Change when they kept trying to tell me that, it made me feel like I was going to have to be somebody fake, like somebody
Yeah.
I wasn't. And so here, I'll give you an example. See, I still carry this, right?
Mm,
So this reminds me that dude is still here.
yeah.
Like if I need that guy, he's still here. I'm just way more than that now, right?
Yeah.
I grew from him, and now I'm all of this too, right? So all of those experiences, like if you've been doing this a long time, guys, you can harvest all of that life and use it to plant a new crop, use it as fertilizer and energy and knowledge and understanding, and your life will just explode from it, right? If you cultivate it, right? You got to bring it in, sift through it, throw out the shit you don't need anymore, and
Old
use the,
weeds.
yeah, exactly.
Get them out of there.
Right?
That's that is. I love the analogy of the garden. We use that a lot. It's like,
Yeah.
you gotta weed your garden. You do have to
Gotta
weed your
weed it,
garden.
and you gotta plant new, you gotta define your seeds. Like a lot of
Yeah.
times we plant stuff and think we want it, and then we get it and we're like, oh, that's not what I wanted at all. It's like,
Yeah.
yeah, you should have figured that out before you put in
Yeah.
all this work to get it, right? Wouldn't that have been beneficial?
I know it's true. And then we plant some things and we don't realize how great and how big that they can turn into whenever it's done from a pure, I think, place or pure spirit of a healed
You're telling me.
more
So
healed
just think
person.
about that. So that was meth makeovers. That was like 2006, okay? 2007, okay? And that was just me not realizing that people were hurting, and I wanted to do something about it. Today, I have 22 coaches, four
Mm,
clinicians, clinical director. We work in 18 halfway houses. This thing is huge. We have 700 active clients. Like
wow.
that all grew from that realization that, can I tell you a real quick story on that shift? So I got out one time, like I said, downtown with $100, right, and no place to go. And so I went and bought a Cricket phone for $50. I had $100, bought a 50, and then bought a membership at 24 Hour Fitness so I could take a shower
Mhm.
and got some place to clean up and stuff. And then I slept a night in City Park. And then eventually I was like, you know what? I know how to make money. And so I went to my people and they gave me a sack and said, go to work, right? And so I'm hanging out downtown, and I run into these guys they call the gutter punks. Okay. And a lot of them are buskers. They're actually working 16th Street Mall. They're singing songs and making money and doing stuff. And at night they get high and party and stuff. And I started hanging out with them, right? And after my time in the Gulf War, and it's actually part of our family culture, we just tell people we love them. Like before I leave, like before I left the room, I
Mm,
say, I love you, bro. Right? Well, I said that I started saying it to these cats, and they were like, "Dude, you creep, get the hell away from me." You know what I mean?
mhm,
It's like, no, it's not like that. I don't know if I'm going to see you again. Maybe, maybe someday we might say goodbye to each other, and I never see you again.
mm.
So I thought that was pretty cool. And then a couple of months later, so this is over the course of a summer. A couple of months later, they started saying it back to me. Love you, Cam.
Oh,
Love you, Cam. I'd get up to leave. I'd get up to leave a room or something, and everybody in the trap house would be like, "Love you, brother. Love you, Cam." Right? I thought, man, that's kind of cool. A couple months go by, and I'm sitting there, and I start hearing them saying it to each other, and
mm,
it was like an epiphany right there that
mm.
one person can make a difference.
Yeah.
Every one of us can make a difference, man. You just have to stay true to that belief, right? You just have to
Yeah.
stay true in it, and it will impact people. Like that moment, that was that epiphany. I was like,
Yeah.
whoa, did I do that? Did that come
Yeah.
from my heart? Man,
Yeah.
I start to tear up just talking
No,
about
me
it.
too. Me
Yeah.
too. Because it's I think when we talk about self-reflection, we are always talking about things that we needed to change and those kind of things. But sometimes self-reflection is seeing you through through other people's eyes, if that makes sense. Like
Absolute. Yes.
you're seeing the good parts of you and you're seeing what difference you can make. And that's wild. That's wild to watch because you, like you said, I said, who are you? And you're like, well, I'm just me trying to do the best I can. And that is what we are. We're all just trying to do the best we can. But when you can see that you've made an impact in someone, you know that somewhere along the way you're doing right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Feels good to be
it
on this
does.
side of it. I made it.
Yeah,
Yay.
that's good. Hey, that's a great thing to be able to say is that you made it. So, well, I appreciate you. And if there is anything that I can do to help you further on anything, please let me know.